What's up guys, I'm Landon from Shoeware, and today we're putting the Puma Clyde All-Pro and the newly released Puma Fusion Nitro head to head to see how they compare. But really quick, if this is your first time checking this out, feel free to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're watching and give this video a like. We would greatly appreciate that. So starting off with the box and the price, these both do come in that, identical black and white, pretty generic Puma box. So kind of skipping past that to look at pricing, there really isn't anything there to separate them either. Both of these pairs are retailing for $130, so middle of the pack for pricing as far as basketball shoes go. So before I get into the performance comparison, I do just want to do a rundown for the appearance for these shoes first. So looking at the colorways, we have the Puma Clyde All-Pro Kyle Kuzma versus the Puma Fusion Nitro Sunblaze. So this is a really similar design for these shoes, especially kind of looking at the pattern on the midsole. Just kind of the overall makeup for that midsole is like nearly identical. I guess the Fusion Nitro, it kind of does come up a little bit higher near the back, but with this Clyde All-Pro being like the Kyle Kuzma inspired or like designed shoe, this is a slightly different makeup for the upper compared to like what the typical Clyde All-Pro model would look like. So I did just want to point that out really quick, but honestly, I really do like the look for both of these shoes. The band that runs across the middle of the, or I guess the center of the shoe for the Fusion Nitro, which kind of ends up leading to that unique lacing setup. I just think that's a pretty clean look in my opinion, but like I said, a really similar design. The name for each model even shows up like on the back, kind of engraved into the midsole for these shoes, so definitely a clean setup for both of these. All right, so now let's get more into the performance and the materials comparison, starting off with the cushioning for both shoes. So finally, some differences show up. The Puma Clyde All-Pro has a Pro Foam Plus midsole, which is a step up from, just that Pro Foam that has been used on past models. And they even added a P-Box drop into the heel of these, which is just like a little cushioning puck back there. And, they just haven't done that with, most of their previous models. And not a lot of time is going to be spent on your heel playing basketball anyways, but whenever you do apply some pressure to the back half of that shoe, it is noticeable. And then switching over to the new Fusion Nitros, these do have a different setup, and Puma goes with what's called a Nitro Foam, which honestly has a pretty nice feel to play in as well. It wasn't quite as soft, but still definitely a comfortable feel to them. And then jumping down to the bottom of these and sticking with the Fusions, the traction is top tier on this shoe just due to how sticky they are. So they do have a pretty unique traction pattern, but the grip on the floor was just amazing. No slipping or like anything along those lines at all. And that does stand for indoors and outdoors, but the traction has been known to be a little more questionable with dusty courts. The grooves aren't really all that deep, and the foam is also pretty soft, so maybe outdoor use wouldn't be your absolute best option for this shoe because it might wear away quickly. But switching to the Clyde All-Pro, they really do excel in that traction aspect too. So you can see in the forefoot how they have like these square patches, some of those with lines flowing horizontally and some vertical, and that is just going to be great for multi-directional coverage. And there is kind of a pivot point mixed into the front half of that shoe in that little black circle. And, that's going to be similar to some other shoes out there like the Nike Air Force One and stuff. But relating it to basketball, that piece just kind of allows or like aids you to be able to spin 360 degrees on the court without moving your foot or like taking it off the ground. But the entire outsole is going to be made up of Puma's high abrasion sticky outsole. It's just really not quite as sticky as the Fusion Nitros are working with, what they got going on. But moving on to the upper, that is where the true separation takes place. So the upper for the Puma Fusion is really not up to par with the rest of the shoe. It's made up of some like plastic or rubber feeling materials that they're meant to be flexible, but it's just too flexible. The traction almost sort of works against this shoe because as great as the grip and like the bite is for the Fusion Nitro, the upper just does not lock you in well enough, and you can like slide out of the shoe a little bit too easily. If you just apply some pressure on like sharp cuts and movements, you can really feel that material start to give. And then the band that kind of runs across the middle of the shoes is meant for some added lockdown, but it just doesn't do enough. But then switching to the Puma Clyde, the support is much better. It's mainly going to be textiles, kind of helping keep the shoe lightweight, making up that upper, keeping it lightweight and breathable. But the lines that kind of cover the upper are actually carbon fiber, which doesn't really stretch. So that definitely does contribute to that lockdown feel. And it's just a lot better in the materials category. But to finish off with the sizing, the Puma Clyde is a true to size fit, but the Fusion Nitro does run a little bit on the snug side. So you may want to consider going a half size up because both of these shoes do have a pretty narrow fit as well. So for for the final ratings, the appearance is honestly too similar to make a clear decision, so I'll just leave that as a tie. But for cushioning, both of these shoes are super comfortable to play in. I do lean towards the Clyde All Pro because it has a slightly softer feel, but that does sort of pair with the Clyde being easily better in both these materials and the support categories. The materials used on the upper for the Fusion Nitro, it clearly wasn't enough to keep your foot from kind of moving and sliding around more than it definitely should, which is going to be why the support is clearly going to lack in that area as well. So the Clyde All Pro is, really solid with the containment. They don't win just because the Fusion is that bad, even though it kind of is, but to finish off with traction, this is definitely the toughest choice, but I'm going to have to give it a tie. Traction is easily the strongest point for the Puma Fusion Nitro, just with how sticky they are and how they grip the floor super nice, but it's definitely not as durable as the Clyde All Pro, which, honestly has a great traction setup as well. They aren't quite as sticky as the Fusion Nitro, but, still a really great feel to move around in, so that is going to lead to the Puma Clyde All Pro walking away the winner pretty easily in this competition. They're honestly one of the most well-rounded basketball shoes that I've played in. There's really no weaknesses, while, of course, the Puma Fusion Nitro has a clear setback with just how loosely the upper works. But, just in case you do want a little bit more of an in-depth review on each shoe, we do have individual shoe reviews live for both of these pairs where I go a little bit deeper into each of these models. So, feel free to go ahead and check that out. And then if you're interested in purchasing one or both of these shoes, check out the links in the description below. But, that pretty much wraps up our performance comparison for the Puma Clyde All Pro versus the Puma Fusion Nitro. Feel free to leave a comment below if you like this video, or just let us know any of the shoes you may want us to check out in the future. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoeware. Peace.